Hello and welcome to the Python Crash Course. This course was brought to you by Banana Chip Tech. So the beginning of this course is an introduction to Python, and really it's an introduction to programming in general. And so that kind of begs the question, what is a program and why do we program? And so to answer that question of what is a program, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a program as a plan or system under which an action may be taken towards a goal. So you can think of this as like a way that we are able to accomplish something. And that's why whenever you hear people talk about how they built a program that does this thing, is what they're really talking about is they wrote a set of instructions to tell a computer how to do something in order to achieve a goal. Now, oftentimes people get confused with these things called programming languages, and you'll hear people talk about, oh, I program only in Java, or I program in Python. And when you're first starting out, it can be a little confusing. Like, what is a programming language? Do I need to know a specific programming language? And why do I need to know that? And so the thing about programming languages is that the meaning conveyed by the programming language can be the same regardless of the programming language used. So, for instance, you don't need to particularly program in Python to accomplish the same task. The idea and the meaning behind what you're trying to do can be accomplished in any of the other programming languages out there. The only difference is that the way that you go about typing it, like physically typing it, will be a little different between the languages. But again, the meaning will stay the same. I want you to think of them as like regular languages. So for instance, if I'm speaking in English, I can say this exact same thing and convey the exact same meaning in Spanish or Mandarin or any other language out there. The only difference is going to be the way that I say it and how that I say it, and whether or not you as a listener will be able to understand what I'm saying. But the inherent meaning is going to be the same. And so programming languages work similarly to this. So this course is going to be focused around teaching Python, and we're going to be talking how to program in Python. But recognize that even though we're learning the syntax, which is like a fancy word for the words and stuff that we use in Python programming, what we're really learning is we're learning how to think logically and understand that basic commonality that you then can be able to apply to different programming languages. Such as like Java or JavaScript or C++. So again, like that basic understanding will remain the same, even though the way that we're programming is going to be only in Python. And so I think that's something that's very important to note and to be cognizant of. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be programming in the Python programming language, and specifically we're going to be programming in Python 3 through the duration of this course. Python 3 is like the latest version of the Python programming language. There used to be a Python 2, but now it is being pretty much replaced by Python 3. And Python 3 is quite nice. I think you'll enjoy Python 3. But just recognize that if you're ever put in a situation where you're asked Python 2 or Python 3, just recognize that the standard is now moving towards Python 3. And so that is why the focus of this course will be on the Python 3 programming language. Now, the second question, right, is how do we think about programming? And so I like to compare programming to the life sciences in the sense that the way that we approach information and understand information in the two disciplines are quite different. So the life sciences are much more top down. So you'll start with the human body, and you go you look in the organ systems, you look in the organs and the tissues, and so on and so forth until you get down to the absolute lowest levels. Programming is the complete opposite of that. And so in programming, we start with the basics, and we build upon those basics until we're able to solve any problem that's out there. And so if you look at this nice little diagram here, and so we'll start with a statement, which is just a simple, like, you're typing something in, just one line statement, right? And then from those statements, we'll learn about how to use variables. And then from those variables, we'll learn about conditionals and loops. And then from those conditionals and loops, we'll be able to better understand how to use functions to achieve tasks. And then from functions, we'll be able to understand how to go even higher and build up classes. And so the structure of this course is going to be started by teaching you these basics down here in the bottom with the variables. We won't really talk that much about statements since statements are just one line, but mainly about variables, and then we'll go to conditionals, and then loops, and then functions, and then classes, and so on and so forth. And so you'll see that as we continue through this course, we're going to be continually building on the knowledge that we've gained previously, and the problems that we're going to be solving are going to be requiring the use of a lot of the stuff we learned earlier. Finally, I was talking to some people, and they were like, "Wow, I feel like programmers are like the magicians of today's day and age." I don't want you to think of programming as magic. I want you to rather think of it as a systematic approach towards solving problems. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is systematically solve problems. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we're going to do is download Python. I'm going to show you where to go to download Python and get that set up. Then we're going to download an integrated development environment called an IDE, and explain the difference between an IDE and a text editor. And then finally, I'm going to show you an online text editor that we can use for Python if for some reason you're having trouble downloading Python and setting it up. So let's go ahead and get that structured. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my web browser here set up. You can see I have my web browser, and we're going to go to python.org. And so python.org is, again, where you can download Python. It's kind of the big website for Python. So you're going to go ahead and click on Downloads. Now notice I'm on a Mac, so it already told me to go to the latest version for Mac OS X, and you can see it's Python 3.9.5. Who knows, whenever you're watching this, what version it might be. But you just want to go ahead, and it should default to the operating system that you're on, but if not, you can download it at whichever one that you want. Okay, cool. So now that you've downloaded Python and get that set up, we're going to talk about integrated development environments and compare that to a text editor. So an integrated development environment allows us to have some extra special functions and stuff in our while we're writing code. And so the integrated development environment that we're going to be using for this tutorial is going to be Pycharm, which is hosted by JetBrains. And so you want to go ahead and download this. And so we can see, like, if we click on what's new, we can see that Pycharm has a bunch of different features, code insights, and all sorts of different things that come within their IDE. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my IDE in just a little bit to show you what it looks like. But recognize that all of these features and stuff they have make your coding life a little easier, but it's not exactly required in order to program. And that's why I wanted to talk a little bit about a text editor. So I do most of my programming actually in text editors, where you just simply type out the text and you run it manually, basically, without using an IDE to set up your thing and run it. And so I want you to not fall into this trap, and I think I fell into this trap a little earlier on, where you believe that an IDE is the only way that you can run a program. Just recognize that you can use text editors, and you're not required to use like Pycharm or another IDE to run your Python code. But for the purpose of this course, we're just going to be using Pycharm. Now, finally, if you're having some trouble setting up, your Pycharm environment and downloading Python, sometimes that can be a real pain. You might want to go ahead and use this website called REPL, and so the URL is right here. And so REPL pretty much just allows you to, code online basically. And so it's like a free collaborative in-browser IDE, and you don't have to spend as much time on setting up. So I already have an account, but you might want to go ahead and create a account here to go ahead and use REPL. So once you get into REPL, you'll end up with a screen that looks like this. What you're going to be doing for the majority of this course is be clicking on, you see this Create tab, Python. You're going to call it, let's call it Test REPL, and you're going to go ahead and create a REPL. And now once you've created your REPL, you'll have your text editor here, and you can just hit run and it will run. So we'll learn about this in the next tutorial, this print hello world, but I'll just show you where it would show up. So you can see you get your hello world here. Now I'm going to open up my Pycharm. Again, I already have it downloaded and installed, so I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. And as you can see, I already have a few Python projects set up, but you'll go ahead and create a new project. We'll call this test project. And hit create. Once you have it created, you'll get a screen that looks something like this. And if you go ahead and so it'll give you all these tips. So you'll see your files over here on the left-hand side. You'll see this green arrow button, and you can go ahead and hit that, and you'll see your output here down in this console. And so that's pretty much it for today's tutorial. I hope that helped, and I invite you to join us next time for our next tutorial. Thank you.